All right, let's start today's discussion with the invocative prayers. Joining your palms together. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So welcome back to our discussion on the Gita and Integrated Yoga course. So today we conclude chapter number 9. Yesterday we had session number 1 of chapter 9, Rajavidya Rajaguhya Yoga. And today we are going to conclude this particular chapter. So very quickly, let me set up the whiteboard. So yesterday we discussed the first part of this chapter, and this chapter, as it is titled as Rajavidya Rajaguhya Yoga, chapter 9. Rajavidya Rajaguhya Yoga. Right. So yesterday we discussed the first part of this chapter, which is the Rajavidya part, where Krishna presented the king of this knowledge. And what was that king of knowledge? The king of all knowledge. And the king of that knowledge was basically knowledge about Krishna, especially knowledge about Krishna's mystical energies. How Krishna operates in mystical ways, and how he is simultaneous. He is and he isn't, everything in this creation and beyond, right? And we understood how about this, his omnipotence aspect, how he is present in this creation, still not present in this creation. Those aspects we understood yesterday. And when one understands this mystical side of Krishna, one naturally starts to want to develop a more deeper connection with Krishna and want to develop a deeper experience of Krishna. Yesterday we spoke about this also, that all of this is not an abstract theoretical knowledge, but rather this is an experience, and one wants to experience this. And the way of experiencing this, that is a Rajaguhya, that is the secret. And the topmost secret is a process of pure devotional service. Why this process of pure devotion is such a secret process, we are going to see that now. So if you remember yesterday, we began the section from text 11 through 25, where we started discussing the different ways to approach Krishna. Different ways to approach Krishna. And in that, if you remember, I mentioned there were three ways. The first was the misdirected way. And the misdirected way was the way of the Mayavadi understanding, which believes the theory of illusion, where they deride the world and the Lord's form as an illusion, as a product of this Maya, right? Then second, we discussed there was also a direct way. While these were called as the Duratmas, there was a path of the Mahatmas who have taken shelter of the Lord's internal potency. Yeah. Mahatma mastu mam partha daivim prakriti mashrita. So they have actually taken shelter of the Daivi Shakti, right? The internal potency, have taken shelter of this devotional potency. So have taken shelter of Lord's internal potency, his Daivi Shakti, his spiritual potency, like that. So then we saw also there was a third category. Then there was the indirect worshippers. And that's where we left off our discussion. So in text number 15, Krishna talks about this kind of indirect worshippers. He says, Jnana yagyena chapi anye yajante mam upasate ekatvena pritatvena bahuda vishwato mukham. So in this indirect worship, Krishna talks about a process called as Jnana Yagya. Jnana Yagya. So which means through this very intellectual kind of understanding, also one can learn to connect to Krishna, right? But this is a very indirect way. Why indirect way? Because the output of this Jnana Yagya is basically threefold. One, they may learn to connect with Krishna through his energies in the form of with an understanding of oneness, or with an understanding of diversity, or with this understanding as the universal form. Right? This understanding of the universal form. So these are the three categories. So what exactly do these mean? Ekatvas. Ekatvas means there are a class of spiritualists who understand that ultimately all form of life has to have its connection with the divine, and that connection to Krishna, they try to identify that very life itself is Krishna, therefore they are one with the Lord. So that principle of life is Krishna, and because I am alive, it is that Krishna-ness within me which is making me alive. Therefore they try to connect, they try to literally think that they are one with the Lord. So this is the category of the oneness, where they think of themselves or they worship themselves as one with the Lord. Right? So is that correct? Are we one with the Lord? Well, no. Right? If you remember, in response to one of our Q&As in the earlier sessions, we discussed this example of the sunlight and sun's light in the form of moon. If you remember that, there we discussed that ultimately, yes, moonlight is also a reflection of sunlight, but still sunlight and moonlight are not the same. Sun and moon are not the same. There is an inconceivable oneness and difference between these two. So to exclusively focus on the oneness is not the complete understanding. However, at least some way, at least even because of some indirect way, they are trying to connect to some level of transcendence, right? So in that way, one may say that this kind of understanding is also a kind of way of approaching Krishna, like that. Okay, so then what about the second path, which is diversity? So what does this path include? Where one understands that it is that one Supreme Lord who expands into various, and we were specifically discussing the ways to approach Krishna from text number 11 through 25, the different ways to approach Krishna. And we spoke about the misdirected way, the direct way, and we were discussing the indirect way of approaching Krishna. And in that, we specifically spoke about these three categories: ekatvas, where they try to approach Krishna in oneness; prithakvas, in diversity; and third, vishwatomukham, in the universal form. And in oneness, we said they try to they misunderstand this element of the difference between the soul and the Lord, and at least in that way, some way indirectly they are trying to connect to something beyond them. So in that way, it is a kind of indirect way of approaching Krishna, right? Because as you remember, Krishna is and he is not. So Krishna is the soul, Krishna is also not the soul. So they at least try to focus on one part of it. So in that way, they try to think of themselves one with Krishna. And with that kind of a partial understanding, they try to connect to the Lord. And in the diversity aspect, one sees that they try to connect to Krishna through the different manifestations of different controllers, the cosmic controllers that are present in this world, right? Especially as in fact, Prabhupada specifically mentions that how they create, because everything has its connection with Krishna, they try to worship anything that is there in this creation and indirectly try to approach Krishna through that. So they, while the previous one, they only see it is ultimately Krishna, I am one with Krishna. The second, in the diversity aspect, the prithakvas, they try to see, everything has its connection with Krishna, or specifically everything, they try to worship anything and everything as the Lord, and that way they try to connect to Krishna with the diverse forms that are available, around us. Now, when I use this word diverse forms, this may sound very similar to the idea of worshiping the Lord in a personal form, right? But this is not what we are talking about. In fact, if we see that specific explanation that Srila Prabhupada gives in that specific purport to 9:15, this is how Srila Prabhupada writes: one who worships himself as one with the Supreme Lord, that is a oneness aspect, then he who concocts some form of the Supreme Lord and worships that. So these are diverse forms which are concocted, right? This is not to be misunderstood with the bona fide forms of the Lord, right? This specific word, pritakva, is not challenging the worship of the personal form of the Lord. In fact, we're going to talk exclusively about the personal form in the next section. But rather, these are these concocted forms of the Lord, of divine forms that one may come up with and start worshipping them as a Lord. At least in that way, why is it still called indirect way and not a misdirected way? Because at least in that way, they are accepting something superior to them, something beyond them, something higher than them, and are surrendering to it or submitting themselves to it. So in that way, they are connecting to something higher. In that way, it is an indirect way of approaching Krishna, right? Though it is not the 100% correct way of approaching Krishna. And the third way, which is a universal form, which is more of a macrocosmic understanding, where one sees that here I am part of this big gigantic system called as this universe. I am just a microcosm in this gigantic manifestation of the macrocosm. Just like how I have this body, and within this body I have different cells, and all these cells are part of my existence. Likewise, one may also think that this entire universe is like the body of the Lord, where the mountains are his bones, the rivers are his veins, the clouds are like his sky, and the grasses and the trees are like the hairs on his body. One can visualize a conceptual macrocosmic form of the Lord and understand that I'm part of that macrocosm, and indirectly I'm worshipping this entire universe as a form of the Lord. That is what it means, a universal form. This also is a kind of an indirect way of approaching the Lord, right? And as part of this macrocosmic understanding, we Krishna is going to talk about some examples also, right? Like in text number 16, he says that when one is engaging in the Vedic yajna, right, the fire sacrifice, one may approach the yajna saying that Krishna is the ritual, he is the offering, he is the herbs that go into the fire, he is the butter, he is the fire, he is the mantras which are recited. So that way in the yajna process, one will connect every element of a yajna as the Supreme Lord and try to feel that presence of the Lord through that act of fire sacrifice. Or one may think, Pitaham yasya jagata mata dhata pitamaha. One may think of the Lord as the father of this universe. He is the mother, he is the father, he is the support, he is the grandsire. He is also the Vedic syllable Om, Pranava. He is a Pranava mantra Om. Or he is also the Rig, Yajur, Sama Vedas. So that way the Lord is making his presence felt by manifesting himself in these varieties of forms as the Vedas, as the Om, as the mantras, as the father and mother of this whole universe. That is one level of understanding with the macrocosmic understanding. Or even one's own day-to-day life, whatever one is acting, right? One can approach the Lord as the goal, as a sustainer, as the master. He's a witness, he's a refuge. He is the creation, annihilation, he's the basis of everything. He's a substrata on which the entire creation is resting. So one can have this kind of a, an understanding of the Lord's presence in every element of creation. So this is also a kind of indirect way of approaching Krishna, where you are connecting to Krishna not directly in his personal aspect, but more in terms of his functional or his energy aspect. That is the way, this indirect ways of approaching Krishna, right? He also says, oh Arjuna, I give the heat, I withhold and send forth the rains. I am immortality. I am also the death personified. I am both spirit and matter are in me. So this kind of a understanding of Krishna as how he is the support and basis of this creation, that is also one way of approaching Krishna, right? But then while these indirect forms may sound little impersonal or more connecting to the energies of the Krishna or more about functions of Krishna in this world, right? Then there is also a more direct way of approaching Krishna, which is the personal way of approaching Krishna, where one relies on connecting to some personal forms. However, even there one can potentially misunderstand, because in the personal forms also, right, where one is through direct devotion, when is trying to approach a personal form to direct devotion, again you will notice there are two kinds of forms. One, there is the actual form of Krishna himself, and there is also the form of the Devatas. Devatas or these cosmic administrators. Right? If you remember, we discussed in the 7th chapter also about how when one is trying to understand the absolute truth, two misunderstandings may come. One may start worshipping anything more powerful than them as forms of the Lord, and one of them are the cosmic administrators. Or two, One may have a mood that Lord is so great that he cannot have a form. That is the impersonal form of worship. So there we discuss the subject matter of this devatas, the demigods or the cosmic administrators, more from the context of where one is, because of a philosophical misunderstanding, one approaches the devatas understanding that, oh, anybody is superior to me is God. That is a philosophical misunderstanding. Here you will see it is slightly different in the sense that one is trying to again worship somebody higher than them, but here one may approach the devatas out of some genuine devotion. When I say devotion, it means some level of selflessness. While the previous case, one may have some kind of an ulterior motive to get some quick results of this world, and one may approach the devatas. Here, one may still be genuine, one may still be selfless in approaching the devatas. They have some kind of a genuine devotional understanding, a devotional sentiment towards approaching to these devatas, right? While the previous case, they had some selfishness, here they are selflessly approaching the devatas. What about such people, right? Because one may see there are devotees of, different cosmic administrators, and they don't want anything from those devatas. They just genuinely are trying to serve. And you might have encountered such people in your interactions, especially in the Vedic culture. You will see a lot of such practitioners, right? So very nicely Krishna says, actually such people are trying to approach me in a avidhi purvakam, in a wrong format, right? Vidhi means some kind of a proper systematic procedure. He says such people, they try to approach me in a wrong way. Why? He goes on to approach, right, let me write this down. So this kind of an approach is avidhi, or a wrong technique. Right? Why does he call it a wrong technique? Because he says actually those who are devatas of other, who are devotees of other gods, other devatas, right? They actually worship them with faith, but actually they are worshipping me only. But they do so in a wrong way, in avidhi. And actually it is I who arrange the benefits that they get even through that kind of an indirect worship. Because one has to understand that aham hi sarva yajnanam bhokta cha prabhur evacha natumam abhijananti tatvanas chavinte. So Krishna says, I am the only enjoyer, I am the master of all the sacrifices. Therefore, those who do not recognize this, right, of my transcendental nature, chavanti, they indirectly will fall down. What do you mean by this fall down? Here Krishna says that when these personalities, when they try to approach the planet of the devatas, what do? They read the Vedic texts. The Vedas talk a lot about this kind of a devata worship, and it talks about going to these heavenly planets and enjoying in those heavenly planets, enjoying all this kind of godly opulence or heavenly opulence, right? And then once they finish that kind of piety that they have gained by their devotion to such devatas, they immediately have to fall down again back into this earthly domain and go through this whole cycle of birth and death, like that. So therefore, that is why Krishna says this is a wrong technique. One may still have genuine devotion to the devatas, but still indirectly, actually, even their faith is steadied by Krishna, right? And therefore, it's an indirect way. It is a wrong way of approaching Krishna. Rather, Krishna says, on the other hand, while those who go through this wrong technique, they eventually fall down, but those who approach Krishna personally in a direct way through genuine direct devotion, for such people, they never fall down. In fact, Krishna says, Ananyas chintayanto mam ye jana pariyupasate tesham nitya abhiyuktanam yogakshemam mahamyaham. For such people, those who worship me with this kind of ananyas chintayanto mam, those who worship me with that ananya bhakti, ananya, Anya means other. Ananya means exclusive. Those who worship me with this mood of exclusive devotion, which means they don't get distracted with any other uh, with any other, either to devatas or any other kind of allurements. For such people, ananyasyantantamam, those who worship upon me, upon my transcendental form, what happens? I carry what they lack and preserve what they have. Right? So this is the promise that Krishna gives, that this is how intimately Krishna takes care of someone who is following this process of Ananya Bhakti. Right? And therefore, this is a very, that is why this is such a secret process. Krishna personally intervenes in the life of such exalted devotees who have exclusively surrendered to the Lord. Right? And therefore, even if there are any shortcomings in their offerings, also Krishna fills them up. So there's a very beautiful story in this regard of one great devotee named Arjunacharya. So Arjunacharya, he was once, back in the days, they didn't have printers to print books, right? So he was actually personally writing a copy of the Bhagavad Gita. Not just even writing, they didn't even have paper back then. They used to etch the verses on palm leaves. So with a needle, he was etching the verses of the Bhagavad Gita on the palm leaf. And at some point, when this particular verse came, it says Yogakshema Vaham Yaham. Aham means I. So Krishna is taking a personal responsibility to take care of his devotees, to his surrendered devotees. So when this great devotee Arjuna Chavini saw that, he felt something is not right here. Why will Krishna personally take care? He will probably arrange for such a devotee through his energies. So immediately he struck off that verse, that word, Maham Yaham, and then he wrote another word which indicates Krishna arranges. Not that he personally takes care, but he somehow indirectly he arranges for such a devotee. And then he wrote that verse, and as was the custom, he would go out begging for alms, and based on that alms, that's what he would eat every day. So he went out begging for alms, but somehow that day, nobody was giving him charity. Nobody was giving him grains, vegetables, whatever he needs for cooking. Nobody was giving him charity that day, right? So then he was wondering, why is this happening to me? Meanwhile, while all of this was happening, in his house was his wife, and as his wife, even before he could return back, two young boys, they come, and then they immediately knock on the door of his house, and his wife attends to them and says, here, our guru, your husband has given us this to give you for today's cooking. And this woman is very, very happy to see these two very beautiful looking, very attractive young boys. And she said, oh, why don't you also wait? I will very quickly cook, and you can also have some food. Then the two boys says, no, we cannot wait. Our teacher is very strict. Look how he punishes us when we don't listen to him. And the two boys, they show their back, and on their back there were these scratch marks. And this gentle lady, his wife, her heart melted and she started crying. How can my husband be so cruel? These two innocent boys, they look so sweet and innocent. How could he even have the heart to punish them? I don't even feel like uttering one harsh word towards them. How could he punish them so harshly? And she becomes very upset at her husband. And immediately she goes into the kitchen, and these two boys, they leave. And the husband comes home after a long time, no arms, with empty hand. He comes home and he tells his wife, look, my dear wife, I'm sorry today I did not get anything in charity. I guess we have to fast today. And then he notices in the kitchen, everything is cooked and ready, and but of course his wife was not there. She was very, very angry with him. So he goes to his wife and says, how did you get all this food? Then in a very angry tone, she says, I sent it. Did you not send all the food to your two disciples? Your two students? And he says, what students? I don't have any students. Can you describe them? Then very beautifully, she gives a description. Oh, this one boy who had a very bright whitish complexion, like the white cloud that you see in the sky. And he was wearing this blue colored, lower garment, dhoti. And then there was this another beautiful boy, even more beautiful, who had this complexion of a darkish monsoon cloud. And he was wearing this bright yellow colored lower garment, right? And how dare you punish such children? They showed their their back, and how could you punish them? And immediately Arjunacharya understood. Oh, he immediately ran to his his room, and he understood that actually that book, that copy of Bhagavad Gita that he was making, Bhagavad Gita is non-different from Lord Krishna himself. And those scratch marks that he made trying to correct that verse of Bhagavad Gita, they were as good as scratching the form of the Lord. And that is what Krishna showed on his back as a young boy. He showed, look what your husband has done. So as he was scratching them, he was hurting the form of the Lord. And indirectly Arjunacharya understood Krishna and Balaram, the two transcendental brothers, they personally came and took care of his needs. So then he was convinced, yes, this is Yoga Kshema Vahamyaham. Krishna personally takes care, right? Then this is the conviction that we all need to develop, that when we take one step towards Krishna, Krishna takes 1,000 steps towards us, unlimited steps towards us, literally, right? All that Krishna is waiting for is at one moment when one day we will wholeheartedly say, Krishna, I am yours. I am ready to surrender to you. And Krishna is eagerly waiting for that moment. In fact, he's ready to jump and immediately intervene in our life and take care of us. And Krishna personally comes. Don't think he's going to make some kind of an indirect arrangement, right? Then we are making the same mistake that Arjunacharya had made. Krishna personally comes and he intervenes in the life of his great devotees, right? And he creates his magic in the lives of such devotees. And don't think that, this, when we talk about this kind of exclusive devotees, it is not some super exalted pure devotees. Even at our level, even at a practitioner level, or if we can, with sincerity of heart, if we approach Krishna, Krishna will personally intervene in our life, and he will start orchestrating such wonderful changes, sometimes blissful, sometimes painful, but still Krishna intervenes, and he will make sure that we grow more and more closer to him, right? That is the promise that Krishna has given the Bhagavad Gita. And that is why this particular section of the Bhagavad Gita is the most confidential knowledge. This is the knowledge, the secret where Krishna is directly intervening in the life of all of us, of all the devotees, like that. And therefore, this path of exclusive devotion, Krishna is now going to elaborate in the next few verses. So we discuss in the form of personal worship, one can be misled into starting to worship all the devatas, but that is a wrong technique. But rather the right technique is worshipping Krishna directly in his personal form, not even his indirect forms, not even his impersonal form, not even his energies, but approaching Krishna directly with that mood of exclusive surrender and exclusive devotion. And when one does that, right, how does one do that? Very beautifully Krishna elaborates this topmost secret. So here is where the secret is revealed from text number 26 through 34. This secret is revealed, right? What is the secret? What does it mean to surrender to Krishna? What does it mean to worship Krishna directly? Does it mean doing some kind of extreme austerities? Does it mean doing some kind of extreme yogic techniques? Does it mean doing engaging in your own daily activities with the complete sense of detachment, what we saw earlier, this karma, jnana, dhyana, all of this? What does it mean? What does it take to approach Krishna, right? Because as you saw so far, all the previous techniques in chapters 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, they were so lofty, right? And even in those, we were kind of hovering around the indirect understanding of Krishna. But when you're talking about a direct understanding of Krishna, what do you think it takes? Some of you may be thinking, oh, it may take some really gigantic effort. But look how simple it is to approach Krishna. In text number 26, Krishna says, Patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhakta prayachati. He says, one who offers me a flower, patram, a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or some water. Patram, pushpam, phalam, toyam, right? But there's a small condition. Now you may say all of these are in singular. Krishna is not talking leaves or flowers and fruits. He's just offering just one leaf, one flower, one fruit, but offer it with all your heart. Because Krishna is not interested even in that leaf or a flower or a fruit or that water. Krishna is interested in your heart. And honestly, that is the only thing that we can offer to Krishna. Because what is it that you can claim is really yours in this world, right? What is it that you can say is not Krishna's? Everything is ultimately belonging to Krishna, right? So what is it that you can think which is yours, you can offer? When you say, I'm surrendering something that belongs to you, you are offering it to the Lord. But think about it. What is it that does not belong to the Lord? Right? There is one thing. This is the secret. There is one thing in this entire creation which does not belong to Krishna, and therefore Krishna wants that. That is a secret. What is that one thing in this creation that does not belong to Krishna? It is your heart, right? It is your free will. Heart here means what is within the heart. There is your free will, and born out of this free will is your love. And that is what Krishna is interested in. That is that, when the real manifestation of love comes when it is very elusive, when it cannot be approached, when something is not yours, the intensity of love towards that really enhances. And Krishna, who is the master and controller of this entire creation, everything is his, but yet he has made us with our own free will, and he has made us with the ability to love him back. And that is what Krishna is hungry for. He's not hungry for leaf. He's not hungry for that flower or fruit or water that we can offer. But using them as an external means, you are manifesting your love. Because understand, what is love? Love is not just a feeling. Love is not a noun. It is a verb. It is an action, right? It is service. It manifests in service. And this act of offering a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water is an act of service. It's an act of loving devotional service, right? And it is not, again, just an external mere ritual that Krishna is interested in. He is interested in that spirit behind that ritual, that spirit of loving devotion. And that is what Krishna is really interested in. He wants to capture your heart. Krishna wants you, out of your free choice, give your heart to him, surrender your heart to him. And that is a secret. When a jiva, when a living entity develops that kind of exclusive devotion, an exclusive mood of Krishna, you are all that I want, I am completely yours. And when one does that, immediately Krishna accepts that. That is the most powerful way of approaching Krishna, right? In fact, there's a nice story in this regard. When when Draupadi, this is in the Mahabharata, when during the fateful gambling match, when Draupadi was being insulted, when she tried all her best. First, she tried approaching the elders in the family to look for justice. Then she approached her own husbands looking for protection. When at one point, when the wicked Dushasan was trying to insult her, she was holding on to her own robes by her own effort. At that point, she was relying on her own strength. When the elders failed, when her own husbands failed, when her own effort failed, at that moment she realized that all that I have in this creation is Krishna. He is my only protector. And she even gives up her own effort of trying to protect her modesty. She raises her arms and she calls out to Krishna, and she starts shedding a tear. And it is described later on, Krishna reveals, actually Rukmini, at that time Krishna is in Dwarka, in a totally different city, and yet he immediately manifests there and protects the modesty of Draupadi, and by transforming himself into this unlimited garment, unlimited sari. So then when Rukmini later on, she asks Krishna, how is it that you traveled instantly from Dwarka to Hastinapur, the other city where Draupadi was? How did you travel so far, right? Because did you use Garuda, your celestial bird, as a means to travel, or did you manifest as Paramatma? Because Krishna's Paramatma is present in everybody's heart. So Krishna is right now there within us, with us, and within us. Did you suddenly just manifest as Paramatma and did you come out? What is the means by which you traveled so fast? Then Krishna says, actually, no. There is one means which is faster than Garuda, which is even faster than Paramatma. What is that? He says, the helpless tears of my devotee is the fastest means by which I manifest and intervene in the life of my devotees. And that is what, is the secret of the sweetness of this mood of devotion. And this is the sweet process of devotional service, which is not so openly revealed in the Vedic scriptures. Only great Mahatmas great souls who have realized this, they have revealed this process of devotional service. That is why to gain access into this secret club of devotional service, one cannot gain it by one's own effort. One needs that Mahat Kripa. We use the word Mahatma. Mahat is a derivative of the word Mahatma, right? One needs mercy of those great souls to access this sweetness of devotional service. That is a speciality of this section of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna is revealing his own heart. What is he really interested in? He is interested in your heart. He is interested in your love. And that is the sweet process of Bhakti Yoga, or this Ananya Bhakti, or pure exclusive devotional service. Right? So in text number 26, Krishna is revealing that it doesn't take much. All it takes is that sincerity and genuine heart. And with that, one can absorb in Krishna. Remember, all of this, why are we doing all of this? Remember, we're trying to fill that circle, karma on the platform of jnana, with the mood and intention of bhakti. How do I remember Krishna? Right? It is not through intellectual conviction. It is not just through meditative absorption, but with the sweetness of loving devotion, one can very strongly and powerfully become conscious of Krishna. Right? And that is a secret which Krishna has revealed here. And then in text number 27, he says, if you cannot, have this, because here Krishna is revealing, I want leaf, I want flower, I want food, I want water. Mainly, I want your heart. Right? If you cannot so fully, exclusively surrender, at least whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you give away, basically, do everything in your life as an offering to me. Right? Make your life as an offering to Krishna. Right? So you decide what you want to do, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to eat. Keep that free will centered around you. But when you're doing them, do it as an offering to Krishna. Right? So you want to be, a great singer, all right, but sing for me. You want to eat you want to eat pizza and pasta, okay, cook nice sattvic pizza and pasta and offer it to Krishna, and understand that, this is a blessing I'm receiving in the form of prasad from Krishna. Right? So whatever you do, whatever you give away, right, even whatever austerities that you like to perform austerities, okay, here is a special day called as Pandav Nirjal Ekadashi, or any Ekadashi for that matter, right? Whatever fasting you are doing, do it as an offering unto me. Make this fasting as your personal connection to Krishna. Every time your body is demanding water, every time your body is demanding food, understand, remember yourself that Krishna, this is the sacrifice I'm making for you. That way, feel connected to Krishna. Right? This is what pure devotional service is all about. You're at every moment of your life, you're feeling connected to Krishna. You're just discovering, you're just looking for opportunities to remember Krishna. Right? So therefore, At this stage, your entire life becomes Krishna conscious. There is never a moment when you are never conscious of Krishna, because in every activity, every part of your being, every part of your existence, you are just trying to find a connection to Krishna. In people, situations, things, whatever may come in your life, you are just completely devoted to Krishna. That is this process, right? And in this way, if you are working that way, you will be free from all bondage of work, whether auspicious or inauspicious. And in that way, you'll be liberated and you'll come to me. That is this process of exclusive devotional service, right? And then Krishna, he talks so beautiful. So this 26 and 27 are such important verses, right? And then he continues to say that, how Krishna is so beautifully, he is neither partial nor impartial. He is neither partial nor impartial, but rather he is reciprocal. He says, I envy no one, samoham sarvabhuteshu. I'm equal to everyone. Name dveshti, I neither hate anyone nor, I'm partial to anyone. That way, Krishna remains neither partial nor impartial. But, ye bhajanti tu mam bhaktya, one who's approaching me in devotional service, such a person is like a friend to me, and I am also a friend to such a person. Because you have to understand, many times we fail to understand that actually God also is like a person. And this is an understanding which is a big leap of faith in understanding for many traditions across this world, right? Because this personal aspect of God is the greatest secret of the Vedas. Because Krishna is also a person, just like how you and I are looking for that one special connection in our life, Krishna also is looking for that special connection with each and every one of us. Therefore, this is the deeper understanding. The Upanishads also describe the absolute truth. They describe Krishna as Rasovai Saha. Rasa means that sweet mellow of exchange when we interact with someone or something, that which gladdens the heart, that is that rasa. And Krishna, he is Rasovai Saha. He is the embodiment of all that rasa. He is also looking for that exchange. In fact, each and every one of us, we are constantly hankering for that sweetness of exchange, whether be it with people or with certain situations or circumstances, whatever it may be. But actually, we don't realize we are all looking for Krishna. We are all looking for that sweet exchange with Krishna. And because we don't know that, we end up seeking that reciprocation from the things and people of this world. But the things and people of this world, they can only partially satisfy us. And even if you interact with them in the utmost pure way, we still have to understand that our connection with those things and people of this world are also just a reminder of that pure connection we can experience with Krishna. It is not that we are trying to disconnect from the things and people of this world, but rather we try to interact with them in a pure way so that those interactions will remind us of how much we are actually longing for Krishna and how much Krishna is longing for us and how much ultimately it is only Krishna who can satisfy the heart, right? And that is why Krishna is defining his own reciprocal nature. And somebody who's following this path of exclusive pure devotion, very, very powerful and a bewildering words Krishna is going to speak now. In text number 30, he says that even if one commits the most abominable action, but if he's engaged in this mood of devotional service, such a person is still to be considered saintly. So what does it mean? It is not a license for a devotee to do whatever they want, but rather Prabhupada very nicely explains that in our life, there are two kinds of activities. There are our conditional activities, or if I may put it, our worldly activities, and there is our constitutional activities, or if I may use the word, spiritual activities. Now, in the course of performing one's spiritual or constitution, by constitution I mean where I have this very special intimate relationship with Krishna, and every endeavor I'm making is trying to revive that relationship with Krishna. And sometimes the process of coming close to Krishna, I may interact with the people and things of this world in a slightly unconventional or in a slightly abominable way, abominable from a worldly standard, from a social, political standard. One may try to approach the people and things of this world in a questionable way. But Krishna says, such a devotee is not to be questioned. Such a devotee is not to be looked down upon, right? Because deep down within their heart, their intention is to develop their connection to Krishna. Therefore, such people, they are to be considered saintly because samyak vyavasito hi saha. In terms of their intention, in terms of their determination, their spiritual conviction, their actions are not for their own selfish enjoyment, but rather their actions are to come closer to Krishna. And that is what is very important, because in the way we lead our life, the way we conduct ourselves in our life, there are our external actions and there are our intentions. And sometimes, our actions may not match the highest standards of purity. Our actions may still be impure, or they may even sometimes not be up to the worldly standards. The worldly standards of what is right and what is wrong, it may not match them. But our intentions may still be pure. We genuinely want to develop that connection with Krishna, right? And this is where a lot of self-honesty is needed, where we have to assess, is it pure intentions, or somewhere am I carrying some egoistic, selfish conceptions, right? And that is why the process of Bhakti Yoga is not so easy. This process of Ananya Bhakti, you have to be ruthlessly honest with yourself. You cannot cheat yourself. The moment you cheat yourself, you will again go down into the abominable path of self-deception. This path is not for those who are self-deceiving themselves, but who are genuinely honest with themselves, right? And when one goes past that egoistic selfishness, and when one has a purity of intention that, look, Krishna, I genuinely want to develop that connection with you. Right now, I may not be there in the highest standard. I may not be the highest standards of purity, but I have a pure intention. My actions may be impure because of my past conditionings or whatever, my unconventional ways of doing things, but my intentions are pure. So Krishna sees that, and he says, do not worry. In the next verse, in text number 31, he says, such a person, right? He says, Kshipram bhavati dharmatma, right? Such a person quickly becomes righteous and will attain lasting peace. And then he says, Kaunteya prajanahi name bhakta pranashyati. He says, oh Arjuna, go and declare, my devotee never perishes. Right? My devotee never perishes. This